Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the way in which Trump, for all of his attacks on key Democrats, seems to actually be at war with his own party. He even recently asked his audience to take sides in his main argument with his own party. But what the orange one is trying to do is exactly what the Conservatives did in the UK. He's trying to push culture wars at the expense of policy. It backfired badly here, and although Trump is not the incumbent in this race, it's hard to see how this is going to work for him anyway. So it's been widely reported that Republican strategists have been begging the orange one to talk about policy. They have reliable lines of attack on the Democrats, who are the incumbent government, along economic lines, for example. Now, this is one of those situations where you look at the data and you say, how can Trump bash Biden or the Democrats on the economy? But the economy is how people feel, not what shows up on a chart or a graph that hardly anyone will see, much less analyse. And the Republicans have got good reason to suppose that if they could focus the debate onto key policy areas, they actually have good lines of attack against the Democrats. But the orange one just doesn't seem interested. He keeps organising speeches where they're presented as having a focus on some policy or other, and then he spends about 3 nanoseconds talking about that policy and then immediately goes on the attack against Biden or Harris or just some other Democrat. And a recent rally was no different. Only, I was reading an article on the event and it made mention of Trump saying to his audience, and I quote, "They always say, sir, please stick to policy. Don't get personal." And yet they're getting personal all night long, these people. Do I still have to stick to policy? For the record, apparently a load in the audience answered back no, giving him the validation he was clearly asking for. Which is quite remarkable when you think about it. First of all, what we have here is Trump obviously at odds with his own party strategies. This close to an election, that's not ideal. I mean, there's always going to be discussions, of course. There will be discussions about how to spin things and which lines will work best. But this sounds like a real conflict at the heart of the Republican operation here, and that Trump has had to come out, make this argument public, and ask his audience to pick a side or to basically back him, just so he can go back to the strategists and say, look, the people agree with me now, will you shut up about policy? That is, I mean, it's quite childish for a start, but it's also insanely dysfunctional. It's also very good news for Harris's campaign. There's been a huge amount of hype around Harris's campaign ever since Biden appeared to play Trump by announcing that he would withdraw from the race just after the Republicans had committed to a running mate who was never going to be an electoral asset and is now seen as a serious liability. But I should just sound a note of caution. Nobody expects a huge gap to open up between either candidate, and some poll gaps can be deceptive anyway with the ridiculous electoral college system. But it has to be said that Harris has only just begun presenting anything in terms of a policy platform. Like her speech last night, from our point of view, I suppose, was the first time she'd ever talked about any policy. And even then it was quite light. You know, so none of the energy around her campaign has been about policies, just this belief that they've finally got someone who can beat Trump. That's it. That's where the excitement has come from. Harris has still to be tested on policy. And the more Trump avoids talking about policy, possibly because he can't remember what his own are and doesn't want to arse it up whilst being recorded, the less Harris has to rush to talk about her own policy areas. And if the orange one is not only reluctant to talk about policies, but actively trying to argue with his strategists that he shouldn't bother at all, then when Harris does present some policies to the American public, they're not going to get much in the way of serious opposition. The media will do its thing, of course, just like it does in the UK. But if Trump can't be bothered, then they're not going to come under major pressure, are they? So if Trump gets his way, it sounds to me like his major events are just going to be a tirade of personal insults towards his opponents, some of whom might even be on his own side and little else. Sure, there are people who like that, obviously, of course, absolutely. But enough to vote him in as president? He's probably making his chances of success way less likely here. And maybe this is why we've also seen at some of Trump's rallies, people leaving during his speeches. I mean, he's clearly upset that Harris has been getting bigger audiences than he has. And we know this is a sore point for him going way back. You know, if you go back to his inauguration as president, where he had a relatively pitiful level of attendance. He tried to claim it was the best ever. Oh, his biggest attendance ever for inauguration. And you're like looking at it, you go, no, it's probably actually one of the lightest. So, of course, when there are clearly lots of spaces available at his rallies and Harris is packing the place out, Trump is going to get really upset. But what's more important than that is not so much the numbers who go along to listen to Trump, but those who go along and leave early. Because it's if you think about it, if you're going to go to a political rally to listen to anyone, you know, Trump, whomever, doesn't matter, it's a major outlay of your time and money for someone to go along to a rally like this. They're giving up a bit of their time to travel. They're probably waiting. They're giving up a whole afternoon or an evening, or maybe both. They've got to wait in line. They've got to get to their place. They're paid for the privilege. They've decided it was worth the time and expense to go along, right? So to leave early, and they've gone along expecting something, right? So to leave early while the orange one is in full flow, it's not like he's finished and like some tribute act is on after him or something. That suggests that not only did these people decide it wasn't worth it after all once they were there, but so badly was it not worth it, they wanted to rescue what little time they had left of the afternoon or evening and get the hell out of there. Basically, when I say that Trump's personal attacks are not likely to be effective, so there's an extent to which I'm basing that on empirical thinking. I'm thinking, look, you know, there are politically engaged people who've basically already made their mind up who to vote for, either Trump or Harris, right? But the election will ultimately be decided mostly by apolitical swing voters in key states. They're not feeding on a daily diet of politics. They're probably avoiding it as much as possible right now. And if Trump's raging attack lines are not even enthusing the people who went along to his rallies to listen to Trump being Trump, if even some of those have gone, oh, this is a bit rubbish, and gone, what about the people who aren't partisan, the voters who aren't partisan? They're not wedded even to any particular policies. They just want a president who seems like they've got a plan to make things better. In pushing this strategy of ignoring policy and simply making speeches an endless tirade of personal insults, the orange one is not only giving Harris the room to not rush into policy details herself, but I can't see that he's doing anything to attract those non-partisan key swing voters. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.